Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I wish to call to order this regular meeting of council at 4 p.m. at June 14th. Council would like to acknowledge the Ucluelet on whose traditional territories the District of Ucluelet operates. Notice of video recording. No audience members and delegates are advised that this proceeding is being video recorded and broadcast on YouTube and Zoom, which may store data on foreign servers. Are there any late items? Well, there are some late items, yeah. That was a trick question. Okay, so everybody's got the late items? Okay, perfect. Looking for approval of the agenda with those late items?
Move approval.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed, carried. And adoption of the minutes from May 31st.
Move adoption.
I'll second.
Any errors or omissions? Okay, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Public input. This is an opportunity for members of the public to provide input. Speakers will have 2 minutes to present unless council votes to extend a speaker's time. Please note, this is not a question and answer period, and council is under no obligation to enter into a debate of any issue. That said, we are more than happy to receive your comments, and we ask that all speakers state their name, address, and the topic. If you're attending via Zoom, please use the raise your hand icon to speak, and if you're attending by telephone, please hit *9. Are there any members of the public, members of the audience who wish to speak? Okay, cool, okay. And clerk, are there any members of the public that wish to speak via Zoom or telephone?
There are no hands raised on Zoom and nobody on the telephone at this time.
What did you? Well, then go ahead. Your hand was very wimpy-ish, but go ahead. Put it up in the air, all right?
Try to be quiet.
There's nothing quiet about you, Matt. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry about... Sorry about that, Matt. Go ahead.
Matt Harbage, 1816 Peninsula Road. I've been in town for over 20 years. I've been involved years ago with the Affordable Housing Committee in 2011, 12, 13. What the actual district has done in the 10 years I've been involved for affordable housing has been abysmal. We have done nothing. We've actually lost property. So I think, I don't know how it works with council to staff, staff to council. I've been in contact with lots of people. I think we actually have to come up, this year's already gone again, but we have to come up with temporary solutions that turn into long-term solutions. Affordable housing is not getting built this year. More than likely won't be getting built next year. So what is our temporary solution for this town? It's already started. Back roads are already full of people. I know they're going to start patrolling them. But there has to be something done. These 8 temporary permits a year on people's property, they're just not working because people don't have enough land in this town to supply room for an RV. They have their own car to park on their own property. They also want to get away from their work. It's not the entire community's job to support all the businesses. So I think, as for me talking to you guys, we have to figure out something temporary to turn into that long-term will eventually take care of, because this town is failing at the moment. Like, we are failing our community, as all the businesses need employees. There's over 50 businesses in town that need employees. That's over 50 to 100 jobs in this town with nowhere to live. So I think as a town, we actually have to start taking care of our town. Town being council, staff, not me personally, because I don't know how to do that. So I just had to say it because I've been thinking it a long time. I always get people talking to me about it because they know I'm kind of passionate about affordable housing and how it should be built and things like that. And I'm not trying to tell you how to do it. I'm just thinking we have to come up with an idea that's temporary, that serves our community, because it's kind of getting a little draining to live here, to say the least. And I'm sure everybody's feeling it, but I just have to say it publicly. Okay, thank you.
Well, you just did, Matt.
There we go.
Thank you. You feel better now? There you go. Yeah. Well, I'm sure that none of us were aware of the situation, but thank you for bringing it up. So, no, we can talk about that. That's fine. I get it. Thank you. Any other members of the public like to make any comments? Okay, back to you, Paula, if you don't mind.
Correspondence that we've received to the community input at ucluelet.ca is all related to a topic later on in the meeting, item 10.7, so perhaps I'll address that then.
Perfect, thank you. Welcome, Councillor Cole. No, it's all good. And have we received any emails? You already answered that one? Okay. Moving on to unfinished business.
Delegation.
Oh, look at that. Sorry. Missed it. I circled it already. Welcome. Pacific Rim Trail Society overview. Barbara Schramm, welcome.
Is this still on? Greetings. We've done a little PowerPoint show to give you something better to look at than me. So I'll let that go full screen. There we go. I'm here today to give an update to the public and to council as to what the Trail Society's been up to. With COVID, it just feels like it's been a long time, so it's time just to refresh what we're up to. So next slide. Oyster Jim was the start of the Wild Pacific Trail, and he continues to be involved. He's currently working on the fourth in 4 viewpoints. That was a capital project that started probably a year ago, and it should be completed this year. So he's working on that. He also does miraculous recoveries of benches tossed over cliffs and anything really difficult that normal people can't possibly do. And he's, of course, our trail visionary for anything new and exciting. So he's still on board. Next. Contrary to popular perception, the Trail Society does not often get their hands dirty. We don't do work bees very often. We did in the past, but with the district coming into full force on maintenance, our skills are outstripped by wonderful people like Jason and the Public Works Department. So kudos to them. The trails never looked so good. We're very grateful for that. Just want to acknowledge that has freed up a great deal of time for the Trail Society, which we've been able to shift towards our educational goals. Next. To that end, we added a new vision to our mission statement to inspire a personal connection with nature to create a wave of change for environmental stewardship. So we're still involved in trail construction, visioning, lobbying to protect what we have, preserving the green space, but education has become our motto. Okay, next. Our educational goals are on 4 fronts simultaneously. We hire a naturalist to do summer interpretive walks, which we hope to expand further and further year-round. But that's for daily programming. And our goal is really to foster a message that gets carried home with people. So they don't just come see a pretty tree and forget all about it. They actually connect with something in nature and take it home with them that gets them to care about the planet a little bit more. And we also host school groups and facilitate them learning as well. So that's a big part of what we do now. Next. And this is our June calendar, which illustrates we have a daily walk every day except Monday, which is our naturalist day off. And as you see, it's jam-packed for the entire month, and we'll continue to do so all summer. So we are able to offer this many walks because we partner with a great many of educational partners who help us spread the message and add their unique spin on everything, which it makes a much more diverse and interesting program. Next. Then we also offer static programs at the Lighthouse at a discovery tent, which we started in, I have to always look at paper for dates because it doesn't stick in my head. The walk started in 2014, the tent, I think 2015, and it offers a place that people flow past and can interact with specific topics offered by the naturalist. And again, we're trying to foster stewardship in the visitor, but what we find is the tent is a powerful influencer of behavior. When COVID hit, we noticed a huge uptick in vandalism on the trail. And as soon as we could get people back on location, we see a huge improvement in that behavior. So we think it has an impact. And it also offers a venue for our partner organizations. Next. So we've become sort of a gatekeeper, if you like, for hosting all these different groups so that the district doesn't have to deal with Strawberry Isle, Redfish, the Coolidge Aquarium, Rain Coast Education Society, Pacific Rim National Park, Wild Safe BC, on, one at a time, which would be exhausting for staff. So we become sort of a bit of a hub for that activity, which I think is a benefit. Next. And that's just a few of the logos gathered over time. We do also have funding partners who help us network the events like Tourism Ucluelet, Clayoquot Biosphere, West Coast Nest, the district. So it's more than just the delivery, it's also the promotion that we have help with. Okay, next. Then the next prong of our educational front are interpretive trails. So instead of just building a trail through the forest, which people walk and talk and never actually learn anything, we offer interpretive signs that focus attention on the ecosystem they're actually visiting. So we have interpretive topics, historical topics, climate change, species of concern, stewardship messages, and this operates year-round, and every time you visit the trail you can pick up something new and come back to a different area and learn a new topic. So our website, our brochure, everything is driving people to not just come here for exercise, but to come and learn. So that's a huge tool in doing so. Next. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we're working right now on doing interpretive trail signs for ancient cedars. So hopefully we've left the best for last. And this past year, a multi-year project was unveiled at Spring Cove Trail. It was a huge accomplishment. That was a success story by the district, the Trail Society, and First Nations partnerships. The dedication ceremony was actually incredibly emotional. You can even watch it on our website. There was a bench dedicated to Barb Tucci, and it was attended by people who traveled from across the pond to witness. So it was extremely successful. This effort was a lot of people, but I'd like to single out Ucluelet First Nations involvement, Abby Fortune, district planners, staff, and council should all have applause. It was an enormous proof of concept to build this trail on private land to help protect the mud flat. So I think it proves that we can do that. We can create this shield and educational piece that will hopefully make a difference. Next. Another accomplishment I'd like to brag about is during COVID, we didn't just retreat and hide in our buildings. We launched a video series that won an Interpretation Canada award, a silver award for quality. It was extremely successful, and it's still ticking away on our website. Go watch whatever you want. And they all had First Nations input, which was sort of a keystone that I keep touching back to because this is their land after all. Next. And that's just showing the statistics for the videos, the year it was released. 50,000 views nearly in just the first year of those videos. And that is the last prong that we do focus on, which is social media, because it reaches people who've been here before or are planning to come. It has a lot of legs. When we post something, it's astonishing. Before I can take my finger off the button, it's just flying away with views. So it has a great reach. We have a good following. So we're proud of that. We're still learning, of course. It's a big area to learn. But with assistance, we're growing that area. And next. Beyond all these things, we are still involved in advocating for our wild coastline and our ecosystems. So we're forever vigilant that what we have built gets preserved and the coastline isn't ruined with skyscrapers. So we're part of the advocation for maintaining the beauty of the area. Next. And lastly, I want to do, whoever's listening, an appeal to consider joining our board or volunteering some time, because we're all volunteers and we could use some help. And some of us are aging out, quite frankly. So it'd be good to get some fresh blood on board. But I do believe we've just begun. We have a great path ahead. And is that the last slide? Yeah. Yes. Next up, I want to bring up Don Ferris. He's our treasurer, because I don't speak numbers.
Okay, so I'm Don Ferris, and I'm the treasurer. I also serve as the chair of this august society. Oh, I'm sorry. How's that? Is that better? Okay, so Barb's told you a little bit about all the good stuff we do. As you might expect, it costs money. So I'm going to briefly talk about how we handle that. So what we've got here is our budget for 2022. Left-hand side is the revenue side, as the name would suggest. On the right-hand side, you have the application of funds. So that's expenses and capital spending. So you got kind of a sources and apps here. Draw your attention to the revenue side. The blue at the top there, 10,000, is the District of Ucluelet annual allocation. You can see below that, a next big one is our direct donations. We're an organization that can issue tax receipts. So we're registered with CRA. And next big one is Canada Helps. Canada Helps has been huge in terms of growing, and I would expect that we'll be well ahead of that for this year. And donation boxes is also similarly important. If you look at the right-hand side, where do we spend the money? You can see that the capital spending in our budget for this year is $20,000. So if you take the blue arrow that's going from the revenue side to the application side, that's illustrative of the $10K from the district in this budget for this year, translating into 20,000 of capital spending, which of course goes on the trail, which belongs to the district. So you can also notice in there the pale blue on the application, or it's green there, sorry, at 58.9. That is our education initiative that we've run, as Barb has indicated, for a number of years, and our intent is to keep that going, of course. The keen item among you would notice that the revenue is less than the apps of funds by over $22,000. That is manageable for us because we have budgets every year, and we budget in a conservative fashion, i.e. our revenues usually exceed our budget and our expenses usually are lower than our budget. So we've built up a bit of a cash surplus. The idea is that we will really support the education. It's going to cost money, but we're prepared to do that. If I could have the next one, which is, okay, this is, the previous one was the budget for the year to come. Again, the keen-eyed among you might say, okay, that's great, that's a plan. What did you actually do? So this shows what we did. These are the actuals for last year. Big impact on this was COVID. If you look again at the pale green there, 11.8, we simply weren't able to run the education programs that we did want to run through that period. We were very successful in our grant writing, and that's been a huge growth for us as well. And again, you see the direct donations. Direct donations are they're individuals leveraging the money that the district puts in, if you want to think about it that way. And again, when you look at the blue wave of the district 10K contribution at the top, the arrow pointing to the right-hand side shows the capital spending, and in this case, it was just over $11,000. So the 10, in this case, translated into 11,000. And so the long and short of the just a very quick number. Trail Society's been in existence for 23 years. Looking at the financials for our society, we have spent on the trail, physical trail improvements and benches that all belong to the district, in excess of $700,000. So that's a description of what we do on a numerical basis. And then I'll turn it back to Barb.
All right, I guess next slide so we don't have to look at numbers. Yeah, I guess I'll just close by saying a community can achieve anything they focus on. So we appreciate the focus of the district, of the community members, and of the visiting public, our partners, everyone who's been moved by walking on the trail, that as a group we make that all possible. And this society is just a pivotal piece, but a piece of that puzzle. So, any question? Mary? Ellen, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mary, or Ellen, can you go to the microphone there if you don't mind? You're going to lose control. It's going to be an interesting
I'm
afternoon.
aware that the Japanese-Canadian bench on the trail has been vandalized 3 times. I don't know whether everybody in this room is aware of that, but I am. And I want to know from the society what you're going to do about it. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, vandalism is a nasty fact of life, and I apologize. No pain is obviously intended. If you email our administrator, we can replace the plaque. Is it the actual bench or the plaque? Really? Okay. We'll take a look at that.
Thanks for bringing it to our attention, Ellen.
Don?
If you guys, a microphone here. Remember, it's a 10-minute delegation. We have a very busy agenda today. Okay?
So, trail maintenance has been under the district's auspices for at least 3 years. Bench maintenance is also under the district's offices. So we'll work with the district in terms of replacing that. And if there's some capital cost involved, I'm sure we can persuade the board to chip in if capital is required to replenish that. But yeah, so we'll look into it.
Don't go anywhere yet, Barb. There may be a couple questions for you. Just because. Any questions or comments from any councillors?
I just have one question, curiosity. What is Canada Helps?
It's our website. That's the agency that.
Microphone, Barb.
That's the agency that delivers the receipt, a nonprofit receipt. But Don may have a correction to that.
Yeah, so Canada Helps is a really good organization. So it's they'll issue tax receipts, and they'll do it in an efficient fashion all across Canada. So for a charity like us, it's a way to access $10 and $20. Although in some cases, we got it seems like there's one guy contributes like $10 a month. He's been doing it for like 3 months now. Yeah. So it's just a really efficient way. They issue the tax receipts, so it's really nice for us. I think they take a small cut probably for their admin as well. They should.
1%, yeah.
You have anything, Councillor?
Not a question, just a comment. I believe that Canada Helps has a QR code on the website, and there's a button you can click, and so it makes it very easy for people to donate.
Yeah. And it's on the donation box for those who don't carry cash, which is a thing now.
Yeah, there's a few. That's fine.
Thanks. Just a comment. The Spring Cove Trail is so delightful. It's a short walk, but it's so different from the rest of the trail. And I love the educational component of the signage there. And I just love walking Spring Cove. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And just to wrap up, just a big thank you, obviously, to your whole organization. We know how critical the trail is to our community. I don't think anyone can actually plan or think of the community without it. And I know that as the community continues to grow, the trails and where it's going are critical pieces to it, probably more important than a general sidewalk. So thank you for what you're doing. Oh, Barb, what are you thinking?
I missed something.
Okay.
Our Lighthouse hopes are to expand from a pop-up tent to a more permanent home at some point. So if you're doing district visioning, we'd appreciate to be part of that picture. To actually have walls someday would be a huge, huge, huge leap forward for staff who obviously you have a retention problem when you're asking them to unpack all they need out of their trunks. Just saying.
Thank you
So
for that.
thanks.
Take care, and thanks again for your time. Okay, moving on. Any unfinished business? No. Okay, bylaws. 9.1 zoning amendment application, Pacific Rim Charters and Guest Lodge. Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen here. All right, so this is an item that council essentially asked to bring back. So this is the Pacific Rim Charters and Guest Lodge, 354 Forbes Road. There was a request in May from the owners to revisit. That's a good start. I'm just going to hold it, I think. So there's a request to revisit a report that we'd brought in March, and this was around the zoning. And essentially the owners have asked that the zoning amendment, which had proceeded as far as third reading 3 years ago, I want to say, but has been sort of paused there while there were some conditions to be met. The owners have asked that the zoning amendment be adjusted to achieve much of the same assurances that a restrictive covenant would have, with the hope that council would adopt a different zoning amendment without the restrictive covenant being registered on title. The report from May is attached, and essentially the request is that council abandon the previous zoning amendment, which was bylaw number 1248, and give first readings to a new one, 1303, and an amendment of the housing agreement. And I'll just briefly go through. So this was the site plan. Here's my cursor here. The blue line on the screen there, running between, this is the building. There's a house, there's an attached guest accommodation over some storage space, and the area that is towards the rear of the building, sort of at the lower part next to the park there that I'm highlighting, that's where on the lowest level what was being proposed to be staff accommodation in that location. They own the vacant lot next door. This blue line is the property boundary between the two parcels. One of the issues was the fire access to the building, and the parking is would be required to. The fire access is necessary for the occupancy of the guest accommodation, and so there's an easement as well to be registered there. The bylaw, the new bylaw, the way it's drafted, would essentially use conditional uses, saying that the commercial tourist accommodation is on the upper floors, and where the dark rectangle is there, on the upper floors is a tourist accommodation. That operation would be dependent on them having the guide business that's there, because that's the tie of having the tourist accommodation. And then the second part here, the ground floor area, where I'm just on the lower image there in the dark area, again, that's where the staff accommodation would be. So there's no time or guarantee without a covenant there of when that would happen. However, the zoning would state that that could be used for staff accommodation or be vacant only. So essentially the motivation being there, the space is there, it's set aside, but as the owners have suggested, there's some issues with registering a restrictive covenant, and so they were asking to have essentially the zoning set that up as far as we can do with the zoning as the tool, if you will. Beyond that, I think I'll just see if there's any questions from council, and I believe the applicants are here as well, if there are any questions for them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gregg, for the history of it. Any questions from any of the councillors? Councillor Cole? Put you on the spot.
Sorry, the way I sit here, I would like if Mr. Gregg could please just outline in both of our options A and B what the detriment to the district would be.
Certainly. So option A in the report would be to essentially give the first readings to this new bylaw. It would allow the business owner to proceed, if you will. So it allows them to sort of move forward, obtain a business license for the guest lodge. It would essentially enable some degree of closure on what's been a long-standing building issue. They have a provisional occupancy now. And the sort of narrow definition of the uses would essentially create a high likelihood that there would be staff housing being constructed. Wouldn't guarantee it, but that space would be there for staff housing. They need staff housing. Others need staff housing. At some point, presumably, there will be a value in having that constructed or finished for the staff housing space. Otherwise, that space would sit vacant. It would not. So the cons of that option, it wouldn't guarantee that the staff housing would be constructed under a certain timeline, and the owners are suggesting that that's really not possible at this point. They may want to speak to that themselves, but that's, we understand, is their intent. And the other thing we mentioned in the report is there were some landscape improvements that were being originally proposed, and we don't see that as a critical issue with this, and so that's sort of a non-issue, we would say, in the relative importance of really the focus of this has been trying to get to closure on the building permits and occupancy, which were about dealing with the minimum standards of health and safety of the operation of this. The other alternative would be to not give readings to this new bylaw, but essentially to leave it as is, where the rezoning bylaw that was considered 3 years ago is still at third reading, but there were some conditions that council had stated would need to be met, including the registration of that restrictive covenant and easement, I'd say, on the title of the property, and that's kind of the hurdle for the owners. That covenant would give more of an assurance. They had a timeline of within so much time, within so many years, there would be the staff housing being constructed. That sort of would bring it to, and with the registration of the easement on site, it would get it beyond the provisional occupancy into a complete regular occupancy, if you will. One of the conditions, if council goes for the new zoning, the option A, is that we'd suggest the business license. We would need to do some monitoring of that, have a condition on the business license, so that if the access goes away because they sell the other property, something changes, then they would not be able to occupy the tourist accommodation units. So it means a little more monitoring on our part to keep an eye on that, because it's the fire access to the building. But that's something that is manageable, and so we've put together that draft bylaw for council to consider. That help?
So to be clear, I asked about the detriments to the community or to the district, and the answer would be, for option A, would be the timing of the long-term rentals may not be succinct or would need to be enforced, and the other one was landscaping. Is there detriments in B, or is that sort of the big thing we're looking at, is those two things for the option A?
For B, what we understand from the communication from the owners is that's just they're not able at this time or willing to meet the conditions that council have put out of that registration of the covenant is a hurdle. So that's been outstanding now for 3 years.
Yeah, no, I understand this has been a long, stinky road. But those two items, as far as what the district is liable for, what the district stands to lose, or what the district, a hardship would be the two things that you stated about maybe not getting those long-term rentals online before other options were exploited, and landscaping is still outstanding. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to get down to
Yep.
so it was said out loud. Thank
Any
you.
questions? We'll get to you in a moment there, Glenn, if you don't mind.
This might be a question for the owners. So, this has been going on a long time. It kind of feels like I've got the wool pulled over my eyes because it's been going on so long and nothing's been put in place. And I don't understand how you're going to run a business of this size without staff housing, with our housing the way it is now. If you could give me a little bit of a description of what you're...
So, first off, we signed the covenant. The city signed the covenant, but our Royal Bank of Canada will not sign the covenant. This is why we're looking for an alternative solution. It's not that we were never not willing to sign the covenant. It's just that our bank will not, so that has put us in a terrible position. As part of our original rezoning, when our rezoning was finalized, we would have 3 years to obtain a building permit to complete the 6 stafacoms and 5 years to have them finished. At this point in time, we're actually substantially ahead of schedule because we have a building permit. We've done over $200,000 worth of preparation work. We've removed our 8,400 square feet of indoor storage and have pre-framed the 6 units. It made financial sense when bringing the building back up to the 2020 building code. Structurally, we had to do this work now instead of later. We spent well over $700,000 bringing our building up to the 2020 building code, which people keep talking about the minimum standards. Our building was built to the 1998 building code. It was an extremely frustrating process. We budgeted for $300,000 and spent over $700,000. And I would assume that the remainder of the staff accoms are going to cost us $300,000 to $400,000. The reason we're looking for the alternative solution is if we don't have one, we're out of business. We've been here for 40 years. We would have no place for our fishing clients to stay. We'd be forced to close our doors. Then what? Nothing moves forward. Staff comms don't get billed. I know we are doing landscaping, and we do have a temporary fire lane access that's satisfactory to the fire department. Fire lane access now. We own both properties, so securing the phase 3 final occupancy of the staff accoms will make more sense to have the new easement put in. So we do have one now. It's a temporary fire access, which is acceptable to everyone. But we just, yeah, you bet. We just can't make our bank sign this. So we're at a pass here. We're not trying to get out of building staff accoms. God only knows we need them. We only need 2, so that means 4 of them are going to be available for the community, which is a great thing. We're currently using a couple of our own guest rooms just for our own staff accoms currently. So we need staff accoms, the community needs staff accom, but if we're not in business, we're not in business. And I know that sounds horrible, but this is the only alternative that we could work with, because we've tried to talk to other financial institutions and they're not willing to touch it. We've been citizens of this community for over 40 years. Work very hard. We're just simple people. We're not land developers. We just need help from you. If you could help us, we could help you. Like that. I don't know what else to say.
That's enough for now. You good with that? Councillor Hoare, do you have any questions for Mr. Gregg or the applicant?
I was curious about the why you wouldn't register the easement, but it sounds like the temporary one is in place now, so that it was just what was in the staff report was saying there wasn't one. So
no, there's definitely satisfactory fire access. Rick has agreed that it is more than accessible, and it's an unlocked gate that can give them full access, and it can't be blocked or locked. So the reason we're late on that is because we always think it's part of that phase 3 thing when we finish the staff accoms, when we put in all the new different parking spots and the new courtyard. At that time, the fire lane's going to change. I mean, it could be registered anytime. We own both properties. We don't anticipate any problems fight with ourselves to put in the legal fire access. And the current recommended fire access, by the way, is on the 2 property lines. So believe it or not, we weren't even able to build on either side of that fire access to begin with. But it's just something duly noted on file that that's where we are going to put it, and it will be there for you. No one's trying to do anything funny here.
Thank you. I think the owners are kind of between a rock and a hard place. And I think the planning department has come up with some creative ways around it for them. And so, yeah, I think based on what I've heard today with the progress that's been made with the staff accommodations and the landscaping, that they are on track to get these things built. And so, yeah, I
thank you.
I'm in favor of the new plan.
And I would echo what Councillor McEwen is saying. Obviously, for our stance here on this side of the fence, we just want to see the building be conforming. You have, obviously, 3 years ago, as Mr. Gregg said, there was covenants were one of the conditions. You in the last 6 or 8 months discovered that is virtually a thing of impossible. So my stance is, I'm happy with this option, only for the simple reason is if the property were to change hands, that the zoning limitations would still apply. So it's not a covenant, but for that, I feel comfortable that we do have some options, but can't stress enough getting, compliance and understanding the reason for the fire lane is you could sell a lot tomorrow, and we just need to make sure that the agreement is protected, and I think we've done that. So thank you, Mr. Gray, for bringing it back for us, and there are 6 recommendations. If someone would like to move them. Yeah, Councillor McEwen. page there. You'll see them highlighted at the back. Yeah, there you go. There. 1 to 6.
Okay, I will move that council give first and second readings to Ucluelet zoning amendment bylaw number 1303, 2022. One at a time.
Yes, please.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I will move that council refer Ucluelet zoning amendment bylaw number 1303, 2022 to a public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I will move that council rescind third reading of the Ucluelet housing agreement bylaw number 1249, 2019.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I will move that council amend Ucluelet housing agreement bylaw number 1249, 2019 to include the new section 3 in Schedule A and to replace Schedule B as shown in Appendix B to the staff report dated March 15th, 2022.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I will move that council give Ucluelet housing agreement bylaw number 1249, 2019 third reading as amended.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And I will I will move that council direct that any business license issued for commercial tourist accommodation use on the property at 354 Forbes Road contain the condition that the business license would not be renewed unless an appropriate fire access easement is first registered on the title of the neighboring vacant lot.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Moving on. Okay, well, Forbes Road will look a little bit different in the coming weeks, so, no, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Moving on to reports. We got 8 of them here. The first one is, this report is provided the Director of Community Planning is regarding the trail right-of-way over 348 Passive Melford. Mr. Gregg.
Thank you. Through the mayor, briefly, this is about closing a gap in the trails, and I should point out that before I start here, that this report and really all of the footwork on this was done by our planner, Mr. Toogood. He saw an opportunity as there was a vacant lot, which is highlighted in black, that the neighborhood, the whole Passive Melford and Amphitrite Place and Barclay Place, there's a footpath that goes up, and then there was an existing footpath which trespassed across that vacant lot for some years. And the owners of the lot are now initiating and have a build and have building permits in, and so a conversation ensued, and there really was it's an excellent sort of I think story of the owners recognizing that it's a win-win to provide a statutory right-of-way, which is sort of moved over, so it's where the red line is, sort of along the edge of the property, where there's an existing drainage, and we already had a statutory right-of-way for the drainage over that little water course, and they've agreed to also provide access for a public footpath that would then go to the park property, the old Coast Guard lands on the far side, and so where the orange is would be a new piece of trail that we would construct to tie into the existing trail to move it a little bit away from where the new house would be, really for the trail experience, and to still keep the trail to the Lighthouse connected to this whole neighborhood. So this is really a report and looking for council support to take the steps around registering the statutory right-of-way, which the owners are generously providing. If there are any questions, or if I've missed anything, that's what I covered.
Yeah, we're
One
going.
in 2 pieces?
I'm sorry, I'm going by it here.
That council, and then there's 1 and 2.
Yeah, do it.
That council, for the purposes of creating a public pathway over 348 Passive Melford, Strata Lot 10, Plan V 1S5896. I need to start wearing my glasses.
Yeah,
Section
give
1
me some of your
Barclay
glasses.
Land District. You know how you need to isolate.
Yeah, the
when-
S and the 5s. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
1 district, direct district of Ucluelet staff to execute and register the S218 statutory right-of-way attachment as Appendix A of Staff Report 22-78.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, carried.
And two, that direct district of staff, Euclid staff, to coordinate the environmental and estimating work required so that the public pathway over 348 Pass Melfort and relocated elements of the Wild Pacific Trail can be considered and prioritized in future budgeting process.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, carried. I feel like I want to do a third one for the property owners. This is like, yeah, and I think, as the trail gets going, whether it's a bench or something, I just would like to see a really acknowledgement towards, are they happy to be in the room? No? You don't see this often, right? That someone's willing to do this, and especially everybody gets freaked out about the trail going beside them. So I know it's off the cuff, I'm not supposed to do that, but
I'm the last.
I'd also like to move a number 3, that a letter of appreciation go towards the property owners, and that during the trail construction, if there's can be some kind of tribute done on that portion for them.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed, carried. Thanks for helping me, Councillor Cole.
Thank you.
Report number 2. The next report is being provided by the Manager of Corporate Services regarding approval to proceed to an alternative approval process. It says Ms. Mason, but is that who's doing this one?
Can I present from here?
Perfect.
So what we're seeking today is approval to proceed to an alternative approval process, in short, an AAP. And that would be, so loan authorization bylaw number 1304/2022 has been given first, second, and third readings. That bylaw proposes that authorization be given to borrow a sum not exceeding $13 million to finance the costs of the development of a water treatment system for the district. The district cannot adopt that bylaw until the approval of the electors has been obtained. It also could not go any further until we had obtained approval from the Inspector of Municipalities. On May 31st, we got that approval to go forward, and so today we're asking if we can go ahead and proceed through the AAP. As you can see in the recommendations, there are several things. First, we need the approval to undertake the AAP. In order to do that, we need to establish the period of 30 days in which the electors in the community could submit a response. We need to approve the elector response form as the official form that would be used to do so. And we need to establish the number of electors for the District of Ucluelet. Those forms are all attached to this report. Can I answer any questions on this?
No, only I like this kind of recommendation where it has "and whereas therefore be resolved." So I would like to move.
It's one of your favorites?
Yeah, I like
perfect.
that.
We'll get to you there. Okay, perfect. Thanks for putting your name in. Lively bunch. Any questions? I think it's been waiting for this for 20 years, so I think we're well ahead, and
Make it so.
let's do it. So, Councillor Cole's volunteered, so go for it.
I'd like to make a recommendation where the District of Ucluelet has given 3 readings to loan authorization bylaw number 1304/2022, which proposes the authorization to be given to borrow upon the credit of the municipality a sum not exceeding $13 million to finance the costs of the development of the water treatment system for the district's well fields, surface water supply, and increasing of the district's water storage capacity, which will be repaid over a period not to exceed 30 years. And whereas the District of Ucluelet cannot adopt bylaw number 1304/2022 until the approval of the electors has been obtained. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct the corporate officer to undertake an alternative approval process to determine the opinion of the electors with regard to the matter, and that Council establish a period of 30 days from July 7, 2022 to August 8, 2022 for submitting and receiving the electoral response forms, and that council approve the electoral response form attached to the staff report number 22-75 for conducting the alternative approval process for loan authorization bylaw number 1304/2022, and that council establish the 2060 electors as the number of electors for the district of Ucluelet.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That's wonderful. That's there. So, just coming on budget now, James. Okay. Okay. Where are we at here? Report number 3, MRDT. This provided by the Chief Administrative Officer regarding MRDT. What is it? Designated receipt. Recipient. Jesus.
Recipient.
Yeah, okay, good. It's going to be good without dinner here tonight, I can tell. No snacks. So we got this one. You got one. Don't use it right. Don't use it too early. Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council received a letter requesting consideration be given by Tourism Ucluelet to become the designated recipient with respect to the MRDT funds. So the MRDT funds, in brief, is the funds received from the past hotel tax that is being used in the past year to fund the development of tourism in the community, and more recently has been transitioned over to a little bit of advertising to continue on that trend, but also as tourism management and sustainability of tourism in the community. Over the past years, the initial framework for that structure has been that Tourism Ucluelet has been the designated, or the DMO, Destination Management Organization, pardon me, which undertook the initiatives, engaged the hoteliers in developing the plan, working with council and the community on the initiatives and the priorities for the MRDT funds. The request now is for council to give consideration to relinquishing the designated recipient status over to Tourism Ucluelet. So currently what happens is the municipality, as the taxation body, receives the funds, and then we transfer those funds collected through the MRDT by hotels over to Tourism Ucluelet to fund the approved budget. The request is for us to no longer collect those funds, so those funds would go directly to Tourism Ucluelet. There's one other key component here, is that the online platform which funds the affordable housing for the community, that is part of those MRDT funds. It would go to Tourism Ucluelet, and then they would remit those funds back to the municipality to continue on funding the affordable housing for the community. So it's basically swapping over that collection status over to TU from the district. What this does with respect to Tourism Ucluelet and how this operates, it streamlines their approval process. They can make decisions a little bit quicker because as the designated recipient, they're the reporting and oversight body for those funds, where right now that's the responsibility of the municipality, and Tourism Ucluelet is required as the DMO to report and work with the municipality to come up with the plans, get approval resolutions from council to approve the plans, and any major changes to the funding model or the strategic plans that they have. That would be bypassed, right? They would no longer need to directly do that, although there would be annual reporting and continued engagement by the Tourism Ucluelet with the municipality on an ongoing basis. But the legislative requirements for the municipality to give approvals is reduced somewhat because they would be the oversight body for receiving those funds. So with respect to workloads in that, for the municipality to maintain this status, there's limited time that the municipality currently expends into managing this. There are several reports, and there's a little bit of financial commitments that we make to provide that oversight. They aren't burdensome on the organization for the municipality. Where this really affects things is for Tourism Ucluelet, because it really does streamline their reporting requirements and gaining authorization to move things along in the reporting and budgetary process. The Tourism Ucluelet has offered to ensure that council is continually engaged in the organization and how things are moving forward, to appoint council or a seat to council as a voting seat. Currently we sit on the board in advisory capacity but do not have a voting seat. But the Tourism Ucluelet is proposing that because of the slightly less mandated requirements for engagement, that a voting seat would be offered to council in lieu of that designated recipient status, which means that there's more directed engagement between staff because we have to do those approvals through council. I'd be happy to answer some more questions, and I'm sure Denise from Tourism Ucluelet would be happy to answer any other questions and provide a little bit more insight into that designated recipient if council wishes.
Councillor McEwen?
Thank you. Through the mayor, I don't know if this is a question for staff or for Denise, but is this becoming the norm for other resort municipalities?
You're probably going to have a couple of questions if you don't mind, Denise.
Yeah, I think we could both tackle that one. It's mixed. There are some communities that have designated the designated recipient to the tourism or the DMO. Others have retained that. It's a prerogative of council, and it's also based on the relationship that the DMO and the municipality have. The stronger the relationship, the more likely that that designation is handed over.
And just a follow-up to that, I imagine this is going to streamline the payment process, because whenever I look at the check requisition, there's like a 4-month lag time between the month that the money was collected for and the time that the check is written to Tourism Ucluelet. So that should streamline that process, I imagine.
So for us, when we receive the information, we do check runs every 2 weeks. It generally does not take the municipality very long to process those checks. I think there has been 1 or 2 occasions where it's been delayed a month, or possibly 2, but on the whole, there's fairly quick turnover on those requisitions.
So then the delay is with the province, I'm assuming.
Yes.
So is the reason why you're doing this is just to streamline it?
It's for a few different reasons. That is one component of it. When it's all said and done, from the time that the province releases the funds, it is about a 3-month process when it comes to funding, and so there is that slight delay. But to Dwayne's point, the district tries to get that to us as quickly as possible. It is becoming the norm for new applicants, renewals, but there are still some communities that still do not report directly to the province, and it's part of the purpose of asking this request is, I can understand, back in the day when TU was implemented, that we started off in a new position and just trying to understand what the organization was with the community, and over time TU has worked really hard to really bring itself forward as a reputable organization, making sure that we're thinking about the community as well as our businesses, because without our businesses we don't have the community and vice versa. So
over the last 3 or 4 years, we've worked really hard to make sure that we rebuild and work with our district of Euclid, because we know that without partnering and having a positive working relationship with the district, that neither can succeed properly. And the other request is it's come because the board, we felt that we've kind of shown that we're able to do that, and we're ready to take that next step as a leader in the community, as an independent organization, and continue to partner with the district. Like that's something that won't change regardless of who's in their seats. We've rebuilt our foundation, and the board continues to do strong work to make sure that our government, that the governance and our finances are always, and our partnerships are always intact.
So then you would cut a check to the district for the affordable housing component?
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not
So
what it's called, but
yeah. So the funds that so the MRDT that is collected through Airbnb is designated to go towards affordable housing, and so that those funds are relinquished quarterly by the province. And so when TU would receive those funds, then we would in turn just write a check and send that over to the district.
I like having a seat on the board. What? A council seat on the board. That's a big-
Well, that shouldn't be.
Just pretend it.
Well, yeah. I think for me, it's like, it's not broken, why fix it? I personally, one of the things that we do as a council, we have, I know what this is getting ready for the next council that's going to be up here in a few months. There's something to be said when the TU comes and presents to all of us. There's something when one of us, whoever would be the unlucky one to have to go to get a free lunch once a month. I think it's great. But the thing is, we all know from our experience that only one person is going to hear that information in those conversations. To me, I find that there's value when TU's coming before us. I don't think we get in the kitchen with TU. This is not about getting money quicker. So you've got a healthy bank account. I think everything's fine there. Throwing the caveat that we should have a seat on the table, I think there's been a healthy relationship. Over the years, we've seen this change where TU doesn't really get much feedback from us. I think you have a very healthy board. But there's also some great examples of communities that are not very healthy between their council and their DMOs, where there is a different discourse between us and nobody in this room is going to find a difference between this council or Tourism Euclid if Tourism Euclid decides to take a campaign that doesn't really match community lands. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but at the end of the day, there's potential for that. So I'm comfortable where it is, and I hope not to upset the board, because I'm not here saying this, that there's a potential there's something wrong. But I think I like the annual update. I like the participation to date, and I think that's all because for ourselves that we haven't been getting in the kitchen. You guys know what your marching orders are. I don't think it's about having a vote on the board. I don't think we need to have a vote on the board, because we already the plan comes before us once a year, and we're the ones that okay it or not. So I struggle with that.
I think it would be. I think it said. What the worry is if it's fine of who's at the table right now, and who you are, but if that was to ever change, it might not be the same dynamic. So you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I get what Mako's going at.
And I think that, and to that point, it is definitely, something to consider, but it's also knowing that, at the end of the day, some of the communities that do have the challenges that they have, it comes down to the voting stakeholders. And so when you're looking at large infrastructures or those sorts of things where there's been some discourse in other communities, it comes down, it's a multi-pronged approach. The district approves the collection of the tax in the community, and the stakeholders agree, and they're the ones that vote to collect the tax. So it's like this joint union of both entities, and how the stakeholders would like to see the funds collected as well. So, spent as well. And so it's this fine balance of both organizations, and that's sort of where TU sits in the middle of balancing both conversations and trying to make sure, and it's throwing the community including the community members into that conversation as well. And so, with a strong board and with a strong foundation, regardless of who's sitting in the seats, that, you know, we still continue to have our, you know, our marching orders, so to speak, and we would still come and continue to present to council, because it is only to our benefit that we keep everybody informed and the community gets to watch these events and see what it is that we're doing. And, you know, my office is downtown and anybody can stop in to ask me questions anytime. And you know, we always ensure that we have a really positive working relationship with the district, because it would not be to anybody's benefit to try to fracture that or revert to the way that things were in the past. You know, we are all about being positive and moving forward and making sure that it's just building out that fine balance of, you know, if I'm not here, it comes down to the board still, at the end of the day, the board themselves making sure that TU is operating at its best level. You know, I'm just the facilitator of it, and I've been fortunate to build really positive relationships over the year. But you know,
you've done amazing. You've done an amazing job, Denise. And I said it's even awkward for me even to say that to you, and out of complete respect when I say that. But the reality is that could change in a heartbeat, and we also know that MRDT eligible things that we're going to be able to spend money on. I think that's going to change in the next 24 months as well, right? You're going to, you know, whether it's, look what happened in Tofino recently, and I think there's other communities that are struggling economically about, you know, infrastructure and, you know, the affordable housing. You know, we put $1 million into that in the last 2 or 3 years, and that's been a big win. And I think that it's going to give some, you know, it's going to give some legs for some good things for the community. So, anyways, I had to say my piece. Unfortunately, the room's full, and it's just a real tough one for me. And what are your thoughts, Councillor Cole?
I don't know. I'm just thinking if there's no harm nor foul in that, they're still going to come and present and engage in the same way they have, so that viewers and our lovely audience and such can absorb and share that information. But yet, if there was a benefit to them or a benefit to the universe that we sat there on the board, then as long as it wasn't taking away from the exposure that we've had since we changed things up, then I don't see the harm in it. I do then look at, is it a conflict of interest for somebody in tourism? And you can say everybody's in tourism, but I'm not in tourism, and I'm not throwing my hand up either. Or like, I'm just wondering if it is a benefit to throw somebody in tourism in there because they have a greater finger on the pulse, or an objective human, if we were to go down that road that isn't knees deep.
I don't know who that human would look like. You get lots of tourist work. What are you talking about?
That's the kind of work anybody wants. We don't want to encourage that kind of work.
I'm pretty sure the broken leg tourist work doesn't really count. It's not the same.
Do you want?
This one's tricky because you know, it's not a clear benefit either way. I understand the mayor's concerns, you know, not wanting to lose the relationship we have and all the information. And then, as Denise said, like, it's not that we won't get those reports. But I can also see that it is really affected by the personalities in the room. I know we've had a seat at the table, a non-voting seat. Do we need a voting seat? I don't know. I mean, yeah, this one's tough.
They're all community-minded people that are on the board, so that's, you know, at the end of the day, it's not like there's a big evil person behind the drapes there. But it's, again, I'm just had to say, I think what could this look like going down the road? Oh yeah, you're right.
On the day.
Yeah, the red glasses. Gotta watch out. Sorry, Denise. Go ahead.
I think that, you know, I certainly don't want to go down a rabbit hole as to kind of what's transpired up the road. That's their own kettle of fish. But that dynamic is, you know, I think that as an example, that kind of shows you, you know, how organizations and how throwing in really unique projects into a funding model that is not typically meant for infrastructure. Because at the end of the day, those hoteliers are the ones that are deciding to spend the money on that infrastructure. It's, you know, Tourism Tofino was the one that sort of drafted the document. They represent the stakeholders, and the District of the District of Tofino is responsible for collecting those funds and dispersing them. but it comes down to the stakeholders who vote on how those funds get spent. And so really that's what caused, so like both organizations can champion as much as they want, but at the end of the day, it is that group of those businesses that decide on how that money gets spent. So and even if both organizations think that it's a great idea, at the end of the day, it is still them because it is such a big capital project. So I just wanted to kind of make that, just kind of clarify that component of it. I think it's, for us, it's just one of those things that, we've reached a point of maturity that the board really feels like that's why we brought that forward for council to consider. At the end of the day, it does come down to a flow of funds and some minor reporting, but I think for us, it's, we've rebuilt our trust and our relationships, and we have really strong governance in place that's continuing to improve, and so that's why we brought it forward at this time. And the thing is sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to also just clarify that should something happen in the next 5 years that TU goes off the rails, council has the right and the district to actually to rescind that decision and actually become the designated recipient again. So that can kind of come back around as well.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I happened to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce back in 2008, and it was my signature on the very first agreement for TU. And whatever gray hair I have right now was from those first few years, because it was a rogue group of hoteliers. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And it was not a pleasant experience, and I think that's what the mayor is getting at. It's about personalities and who's at the table. And just a second point, I find it interesting that it's the FRAPs, the fixed roof accommodation providers, that have 4 rooms or more are considered your stakeholders, and yet those people that have 3 rooms or less are still contributing to the MRDT. I just find that's kind of a lopsided playing field. But anyway, those are just my 2 comments.
Yeah, no, very much so. And that comes down to the provincial legislation of how it was originally devised when that program and that funding model was written is that, so a fixed roof accommodation, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a hotel accommodation that is 4 units or more effectively. So anybody who and for the amount that we have in town, there's 21 of them that after this process, regardless of what the decision is, we have to go and get their signatures, and we are required to have 51% of the properties and 51% of the doors or the units approve the next 5 years of our plan. So that's the process that we're in the midst of right now.
I just had that I would support option A if there was still something in there that would support still staff engagement, staff like that whole
absolutely.
And some kind of reporting, and to make sure that there's still a delegation for that. So I would support that.
I would still pester Mr. Lawrence quite frequently. So.
Okay, well, someone like to move option A or no motion? What's your choice? Drum roll.
I'll move that council approve option A to designate Tourism Ucluelet as the designated recipient of the municipal resort development tax.
I'll second that. Just because, for discussion. My position hasn't changed. I'm just not comfortable with it, so, And are there any last closing remarks on that you're thinking? No? Well, it's just, the question to yourself is, how has your relationship been with it for almost 4 years? Has it been comfortable for you? Have you feel like you've been informed? Have you been participating? Yeah, so that's my whole point. It's not broken, why fix it? Anyways, I'm working you over, so I need one more. Anyways, that's it. It ain't broken, why fix it? It's. So anyways, that's it. Sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. Anyways, I'll call that one to question if there's no other comments. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
What would be the detriment?
There is none, according to Dennis. Or not to Denise. There is none.
Right? Don't assume genders and all of that right now. So can staff speak to, and does anybody on staff have a comment of what a detriment might be if
Mr. Lawrence probably answer
motion
that question.
A was?
Through the mayor, it's a matter of balance. I would say that if we, as council has been discussing, the primary detriment, I would say, specifically for the municipality, would be that there is no guarantee of ongoing at the same level of engagement that we currently have with the DMO. If the positions change either on the municipality side or the DMO side, there's no mandated requirement other than the annual report, I believe, that would require the DMO to come before council more than on that annual basis. So right now we have a very positive working relationship with the DMO, and also a requirement to engage, because there's a resolution process that has to come through council. So that would be the detriment, is that resolution process would no longer be strictly required, although it could be retained through ongoing positive relationship with the DMO.
Neutral answer. I like it.
How's that fence feel? Sorry, I can't help being sassy. Thank you, Denise, for saying that it can be rescinded if something went sideways. That's appreciated too, and that kind of makes a difference. The TU district relationship has certainly changed, and I agree. It's a much more mature association. I understand the mayor's position, because we did kind of take people's seats from various committees and develop committee of the wholes instead, so that everybody heard everything, because we don't like it when we're playing telephone. I'm really bad at telephone personally. I tell crazy things. You never know what I'm hearing in my head. It's the voices. It's all about the voices. But yeah, currently it's I don't know which way I'm on the fence too.
I have something through the mayor to the mayor. I would like to hear, I would like to hear, aside from, I get if it's not broken, don't fix it. I would like to hear, aside from that, what you think the detriment to making the change would be, if any.
That's it. I'm comfortable the way it is, but I'm also just for the record, I'm also comfortable doing a change. I'm just not comfortable the way it's going now with the people that are involved and with opportunities. Like for example, the Affordable Housing Initiative. You're sweating over there?
No, you just said the opposite of what you said before.
What's
so.
that? Of what?
That you're not comfortable with the way it is right now.
No, you are.
No, I am. That's right. I am
Yeah,
comfortable the way it is, and change it. But you know what? I also know the group that are there. You guys will excel in it. I just get concerned that if there's an opportunity, it says it clearly here. In my red pen.
So,
go ahead, Rochelle.
So to be clear, it's not that or part and parcel of it's not broken, we don't need to fix it, but if we change it, we might break it.
Well, there's a potential, and I think that and maybe I'm more attached to it because, again, as Councillor McEwen mentioned earlier, they once had to report to the Chamber of Commerce, and you know what? And I was happy that we ripped that apart. I was a big villain. Everybody quit, and I was this big jerk because we ripped them apart. And I think what's popped out of here, it's blossomed. It's a great board that doesn't have any kind of, has a fair representation of the community. It ain't broken. And it gives us the ability to know that the District of Ucluelet still created it, and here it is. Again, I know the the TU board, they're concerned about who's going to be sitting up here in about 5 months, and they would like to probably do their own thing and in a respectful way.
So then, through the mayor to Denise, so I can be very clear, the reason that this would be something you're asking for is because should this table be different in the future, you think you have it good now, you want to make sure that that's status quo or better?
You know what? The board has got. Well,
That's like a living
but
room
you know what,
question. I
though?
like it.
It's a great question, Councillor Cole. At the end of the day, these seats will eventually change. I think it comes down to the inherent relationships between both organizations and maintaining that, because ultimately, while I do come and present and I do know council personally as well as professionally, I do a lot of my work with Mr. Lawrence, and the board is also fully aware of that. So it's that maintaining that relationship. And when somebody comes in behind me, I'm not saying that's happening anytime soon, but eventually things change. And the thing is that will come down to the board saying, these are your requirements to your job. These are the partners that we have in place. This is what we expect of you. And by having, you know, even if it is a voting seat on the board, the district will always have, they will have a vote on that, you know, the same way that Ucluelet government has a vote on our board now, the same way that we have representation from other activity providers and other organizations in the community that participate on our board of directors. So I think it really does depend on how, you know, on what, you know, whether it's trusting the process is really what it comes down to. So
Trust the process. I said my 2 bits. Can I call this one a question, or is there any more discussion on that one? Are you have something? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Wonderful. We made you work for it, so that's the only thing. That's good.
thank you very
And,
much.
and extend our thank you to the board as well. So that was nothing towards the board whatsoever, Heather and group, right? Okay.
Thank you
So,
very much.
No, thank you.
We appreciate
Take care.
that. Thank you.
I like those ones. Okay. Well, this will be.
Oh, yeah. I sent a
Bio break.
Yeah, I request that I make a motion that we have a quick 10-minute bio break.
Right now?
Yeah.
Do it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll second that. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, welcome back. And into report number 4. This report is provided by the Director of Parks and Recreations regarding Canada Day closure. Welcome, Ms. Fortune.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have a closure for Fraser Lane for the Canada Day festivities on Friday, July 1st. This allows us to have a greater expansion of programming for that day, and we are running Canada Day celebration from noon to 3, and were lucky enough to get some funds from the Ministry of Canadian Heritage to the tune of $1,200. So we're quite excited about that and the events that will take place that day. But in order to do that, we do need a road closure, which needs to be sanctioned by yourself. We do have the Youth participating in the program as well, and they will be a part of the Color Guard. And we are trying to do some more fun programming with them for that day. So that's something we are working on moving forward.
It's crazy. July 1st is like 2 weeks away.
That's too loud.
Okay. Are we good now?
Still feedback.
Okay, I'll talk from here.
Through the mayor, it will just be so nice to have Canada Day back again. It's been a couple of years, so yay for that.
True enough.
This is a simple one. There's a recommendation.
I'll make the recommendation that council approve option A to authorize the closure of Fraser Lane from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in front of the Village Green on Friday, July 1st, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I've only been trying since your feedback moment. I actually have a question for our Director of Parks and Recreation. Is there going to be a market? Is that part of the reason for the expansion and
That's correct. Yes.
onto
Yes.
Fraser Lane?
Yes.
Cool. I can't get to the regular market, so.
This one's for you.
Any other questions? No? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Thank
you, Ms. Fortune.
Thank you.
Report number 5. The next 3 reports will be provided by the Director of Community Planning. The first one is regarding a temporary use permit for 1632 Bay Street. Welcome, Mr. Gregg.
I'll just need to recuse myself. This is my employment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Through the mayor, this is the first of the temporary use permits on the agenda today. This is for 1632 Bay Street, and the request is for 1 seasonal RV camping space for local workers in the front yard of 1632 Bay for a period of 6 months. As you can see on the screen, there's the site plan showing the location, and there's a photograph. The unit is there in place, so it's very easy to illustrate and imagine what it would appear like. I would just note that notification has been given for this and the other temporary use permits. So certainly I believe a representative for the applicant is here if there are any questions, and also an opportunity for the public to make comments should be just part of the process here.
Councilor McEwen?
Thank you. Through the mayor to staff, do we know if BlackRock owns that house or are they just leasing it?
I believe it is owned, but the applicant perhaps could clarify. Looks like yes.
Thank you.
So I just have a comment and then a query. And the comment is that, wow, we've come a long ways, which makes it super sad because I think when about 4 years ago, my dad parked his RV overnight on the street in front of our house, and I got a little bylaw guy. Oh yeah, and he was just like one night he pulled up, and we didn't even know if he's going to sleep in there yet or not, but it was a thing. And so then my query is, have we been considering, because I don't think we have been considering RVs sitting in people's front yards yet for temporary use permits. This would be the first one, correct?
This would be the first, I believe, that we've seen in the last couple of years, where it is so clearly in the front yard as opposed to in a driveway along the side, or to the side. And I would just note that I think that's why with the temporary use permits there is a process of notification of the neighbors, and so that if there are any concerns, there is an opportunity for the public to speak to it.
So one follow-up to that is a question. Would it not be possible to park it alongside the house on one side or the other so it doesn't look like it's just plopped in somebody's front yard, so it looks like it's more parked as opposed to, it's just, yeah, I don't know. Would that be a possibility through the mayor to Mr. Gregg, maybe to the owner?
Through the mayor, I think it's just maybe that's a question for the applicant, whether they'd be willing to relocate the trailer.
Hi, I'm Heather Riddick. I'm too short. There we go. Sorry. Tall people, short people. So Heather Riddick, and I apologize. I was asked to represent, and I won't be able to fully answer. I believe, based on the property, there isn't actually enough space on either side to do it. But that's something I can go back to Adele and the rest of the team to look at.
Well, my comment kind of follows along Councillor Cole's in that it's so high vis in the front yard, and it's I walked by it the other day on my way to the UCC, and I was like, wait a minute, that's an RV in the front yard, and not a fan. Sorry.
I don't live in the neighborhood, but I know one of the key things for me on these temporary use permits is really what the neighborhood's directly affected. And I don't see any letters here, but they've been notified. So obviously, regardless if I agree with it or don't like the optics of it, they've been all notified, and there's been no emails and no nothing from anybody. Is that correct, Mr. Gregg?
Through the mayor, correct. All of the correspondence we've received is on other applications.
Okay.
We haven't received any on this one, unless there's something that's just come in. I would just note that there are the draft permit and the suggested sort of standard, if you will, conditions of the permit are in front of you. Council has the ability to change or alter or add a condition if it was the desire to specify a different location of the trailer. That is an option within this process.
The trailer's already been there and been in use for a few months already. So I think this is just trying to make it legal and conforming, or with a temporary use permit. So, although aesthetically, I would have preferred to see some kind of cover there or fence. But again, if the neighbors have not sent not one letter of objection to what's going on Bay Street, I do echo the fact that what is this? This is the precedence we're going to set. BlackRock's a big employer; they need it. I already asked Councillor Kemp's here before she took off, or before the meeting, asked why she didn't put it behind BlackRock or something. I got to get over the fact is you guys have tried to find a spot. I understand that they're using the bathroom inside the house, so there's no bathroom or showers going on out there. It's simply a place to reside. So, I'm supportive of the temporary use permit only for the simple fact that none of the neighbors have objected to this application. Final thoughts? Go ahead.
That's almost like one of those alternative approval processes, though. If enough people don't step up and say no, then it makes it means that everybody's okay with it. Yeah. Even if it were parked where the white car is, parked like it was backed into that, it looks like it's squatting as opposed to being parked. Now this might just be semantics, or I might be splitting hairs, but I think it could look better even in the space that I'm visualizing. I don't know. That's just a comment.
You're walking by, the door's wide open, they're cooking. Right? It's definitely I did ask Councillor Kempson.
There were some other alternatives.
That's apparently so.
I would accept it for a temporary use I would accept it for temporary use for the short term if it was
It's a
re-parked and straightened out and didn't look so just haphazard, and that's just being picky, but
It's okay, it's your time to be picky.
yeah.
Well, what are the conditions there? I'm flipping ahead here. If you wanted to throw a little caveat of them attempting to try to reposition it?
Just back it in where the white car is on the side.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
If I may. If you give staff just a moment here, we might be able to draft an amendment to the resolution
Perfect.
that can be added on to request the reorientation of the trailer to perpendicular to the house.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it.
Just give me one moment.
To the far lot line. And to the far lot line, off to the side, so the
North
people
side.
in the yeah, so the people in the house aren't looking out at a trailer parked, and the people in the street don't. Anyways, yes, thank you.
Perpendicular will work, I think.
I might suggest it because of the orientation of where the door is, for the trailer, that wherever the trailer fits with the most access considerations or something like that. So it might work just that it's perpendicular rather than a specific location, because then if it doesn't fit in that location, then it could be problematic.
Okay. Sounds good. So you're going to work on something for us.
Perpendicular versus
I'll put the
oblique
glasses on here.
angles. It's, yeah. Sorry, Heather.
Yeah, sorry, Mr.
I just wanted to clarify through the mayor. We haven't had any written submissions, but again, we've given notice, and so council should give an opportunity to be heard in case anyone has verbal submissions by Zoom or in person.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak to this particular applicant or application? And I'll look over to you, Paula, if there's any Zoom or any hands raised or any emails to communityinput@ecluit.ca. Oh, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't realize you were writing that. I apologize.
There are no hands raised on Zoom at the moment, no phone calls at the moment, and no new emails regarding this item. And I will be back with you in a moment.
I think I have a resolution
Okay,
for council,
awesome.
if you
There
will.
you go. Wordsmith.
So I'll just read this for council to make sure that it's what you're looking for. So that council, subject to public comment and provided the applicant reorientate the trailer to be perpendicular to the residence, authorize the issuance of temporary use permit 22-02 to allow one seasonal RV camping space for local workers in the front yard of 1632 Bay Street for a period of 6 months.
That works, but reorientate isn't a word. Reorient, period.
Reorientate.
PhD. There you go.
So she can read it then.
Yes. No, he just, if you just want to.
Oh, then
I'll move
Move
it.
it in second.
So you move that one.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lawrence, for that. If you would like to bring Lara back in. Okay, report number 6. The next report is regarding temporary use permit for 1992 Peninsula Road. Welcome back, Mr. Craig.
Thank you, and through the mayor, this is a request to, well, really, Howler's Restaurant already has held a temporary use permit, so this is a renewal, but also expansion, where they've held a permit for one camping space, and they were requesting a renewal for that seasonal worker camping to expand to 3 at the rear of the restaurant, as shown on the screen. Again, if there are any questions, I can answer them. And this is one of those applications where the public should be provided an opportunity to speak to this as well.
Councillor McEwen?
Through the mayor to staff, just a comment that this is a much better plan as opposed to the last one, to have temporary use permit trailers in the back of a property. It's I support this one.
And I echo what you're saying here, because obviously Howlers is a staple in our community, needs workers, so I think they're doing the best with what they can. So again, I'm very supportive of this application.
The only thing I can say about it is that 3-year period, and we know we've heard me whine about extended because temporary use then extended for years, but I've said it before and it doesn't matter.
Again, I think they're the property owners, and I don't see any objections from the neighboring property owner, and it's their place. It's not a place anybody resides. It's a place of business. So I think they'll do the best to ensure that it looks appealing, and 3 years will go by quickly. Go ahead.
Just a comment, and this may be to the applicant. It says in the letter they would be summer temporary spots aside from the one full-time local. So they would go vacant, but does that full-time local, is somebody there year-round? Because they're only supposed to be occupied for 6 months of the year. Because they're RVs, right?
Right. Amy, you'll have to go to the microphone if you don't mind.
So, yes, there was someone there for all year round. Originally, Lester Poon, he was there full time, and when I first originally went for this application, I was not under the understanding that he would have to leave temporarily for that time. So this is actually new to me, but is that, because it's 3 year, it's not a 6 month that I was going for, it's a 3 year. So I thought that would be just 3 years of someone would be allowed to be there. And it just depends on the person that's actually coming to use that spot. Sometimes they're literally just here for the summer.
And that's the word seasonal. Did you want to answer the question?
Well, I understand, but I believe staff could correct me if I'm incorrect here. But my understanding is that because RVs are not built to the same kind of specs as housing, they cannot be occupied for more than 6 months.
Okay.
At a time, and so need to be vacated. And my understanding was that was part of all of the temporary use permits that we have entertained over the last few years.
Okay,
Yours
even the
included.
ones as I was one of the original ones back in the day for the 3 year one. Yes. Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Yeah, just informing you, just trying to work your schedule regarding your seasonal workers.
Something a little bit more permanent in that location eventually would be our dream.
Yeah, for sure.
Honestly, tie into the sewer, which is something that after a good couple of years of business, I think we can look much more forward into that and focus our funds into developing a little bit better back there. That's actually our goal. So definitely I could see something more permanent structure, hopefully small but affordable. And that's what our goal is here. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Good to know.
Anything else for the applicant?
No, sorry, I didn't mean it to be a total spanner in the works, but I
totally
just
fine.
was it's part of trying to understand the temporary
Yeah.
use permits when they come forward and trying to understand the rules around them. So
Yeah, no, for sure. Should I stay
No,
up
I
here?
think you're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy. So are there a couple recommendations? Councillor McEwen? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, through the mayor. an opportunity for the public to be heard is a necessary
Oh,
part of
yeah,
the process.
sorry. I still see a thick binder here. I'm trying to, don't want to rush the system. So, anybody in the audience that'd like to speak regarding this application? Okay, hearing, seeing none in the audience. Anyone via Zoom?
There are no hands raised on Zoom and no telephone calls. There are also no emails regarding this item.
Okay, Mr. Gregg? Thank you for keeping me between the lines. Councillor McEwen, please.
Okay, I will move that council, subject to public comment, authorize 1, amend temporary use permit 19-04 by adding 2 new seasonal RV camping spaces for local workers to the rear of the Howler's Restaurant to the existing permit allowance of 1 space, and 2, renew temporary use permit 19-04 as amended for a total of 3 seasonal RV camping spaces for local workers to the rear of the Howler's Restaurant for a period of 3 years.
Who's waving? You waving at me? Oh, sorry. We're on page 115, Don. Yes, sir. We were talking about it. You're listening.
We're doing 1904
1904.
That one you're talking about is next. We're on page 115 of 215.
It's because we're amending a temporary use permit that was was temporary use permit 1904. That's the confusion.
Okay, where was I? So you just finished that of 3 years, and then do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Report number 7 is the last report from Mr. Gregg is regarding temporary use permit 912 Barclay Place. Mr. Gregg?
Through the mayor, so this is for 912 Barclay Place. This is a requested temporary use permit, also by the owners of Howler's Restaurant, who are also the owners of this property, for 3 seasonal RV camping spaces for local workers. They're requesting it for that seasonal use would be extended over 3 years as well. As I noted, that we have received some letters that are on the agenda. I believe there are also some late items, and that. Again, I'll remind council this is an opportunity to also seek input if there are members of the audience or via Zoom. Other than that, I just see if there's any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gregg? And I'll look to the audience. Is any members of the audience that like to speak regarding this application? Hearing, seeing none, I'll turn to you.
Oh, Ellen's.
Ellen, oh.
Not a Bible. Good afternoon, Mayor and councilors, and particularly good afternoon to the staff who are here. Most of my words are going to be not to council and council and mayor, but mostly to staff. This particular situation calls for the wisdom of a person like Solomon. It's difficult, this situation. Here we have a local, well-loved business restaurant in Ucluelet looking for staff accommodation. Who could argue with that? It's basic. It's like mother's milk. On the other hand, we have people who live near 912 Barclay Place who have built and purchased big, wonderful, millionaire-type housing. There's also complicated by a children's playground, which is frequented most of the daylight hours, and its location. I think the word that came to my mind when I was asked to present this on behalf of the people at the edge, the people on Elina Road, was this situation is inappropriate. And I thought, well, how can I phrase this to make the appropriateness make sense? So I thought, okay, I should use food, a food analogy. You would not serve hot dogs with Dom Perignon. You would not, in any circumstances, serve Kraft dinner with caviar. My point being that there is a standard here in this community. This has been here for a long time. And then the injection of something that's quite new and quite different. And I think things are not going down the road in terms of, can we trust this procedure? So this group that live at the edge, Passive Melford, Elina Road, and the Kimoto family, we've had to kind of put together a solution that might help everybody here, and that's where staff comes in. Because the crux of the matter is not that Amy and Kent should be helped by the taxpayers of Ucluelet in terms of staffing. That's not the issue, I don't think. The issue is throughout North America and Europe and Japan and the Far East, we have a singular problem with where do people live and how should they live. So I'm waxing a little bit philosophical. I hope that's okay with staff, but I want you to think about your decision and what it does to the milieu of the civilization in which you are living, and that is, we all live in Ucluelet, okay? And just last month there was a CBC radio project. They were going to try to find out the best little town in BC. Do you know we came in second? Only to Kimberley. So I emailed my good friend Jason and told him we should have counted all the, all of Trump's votes and we would have won. Well, that's a bit far-fetched. But do you know what I'm getting at? I think your decision has to be done in the right way, and it has to be, I'm not going to tell you my particular feelings on this because, I live at 890 Peninsula Road, and I can't see what the people who live close by are going to see. So really, I should take myself out of the visual field, right? But because the Kimotos have lived on this particular piece of property since 1950, I think it gives me a little bit of a heart-rendering kind of judgment on how mayor and council should vote on this issue. So I want you to think not only small in terms of, 1, 2, 3 little RV things, but in terms of the larger picture. And do the right decision for all of us who live in privileged houses, some with trampolines, some with swimming pools, some with beautiful gardens, and then think of the people who are working with Amy and Kent and trying to provide Ucluelet with a well-earned Sunday dinner out. I think you've got to put your heads together, staff, and come up with some solutions. Never mind their votes. They're going to be okay. The election's in October. Sorry, guys. But staff, you're going to be here a long time. I don't know whether any of you have been to Hong Kong lately. But if you've been to Hong Kong lately, you will notice piles and piles and piles of containers. Millions of them, all piled up on the side of the road. Now, if you were a bit creative, you could barge over hundreds and hundreds of these containers to North America. I mean, look what school districts did when their schools became too crowded. What did they do? They got portables. Simple and easy. And it fitted the bill. So my speech tonight, and I'll stop now, is that please, staff, think of some ways in which Ucluelet could put its name on the map for solutions to our situation. I just want to share one more thing. 2 weeks ago, the Premier of our province, John Horgan, stood in Richmond, in Steveston, and delivered an apology for the fact that 22,000 Japanese Canadians were evacuated in 1941. And we were all Canadian citizens. So, with Josie Osborne present in Ucluelet, in this very room, we watched a event that concluded with the fact that Premier Horgan has bequeathed the princely sum of $100 million to the survivors of the Japanese camps. Do you know how many survivors there are in Ucluelet? There are 3 of us. My Aunt Mary, who you all know, myself, and Susie, who works at the co-op behind the deli. There's a committee, 3 of us, and what we'd like to do is partner with council and staff to figure out what portion of the $110 million Ucluelet should get, because it's there. Josie said it's there. I believe Josie. She would not have said anything like that if it weren't true. So, what do we need to do with the $100 million that the NDP, and some people are going to boo, government has said, the survivors in Ucluelet, you have a committee and you stake out what you want done with the $110 million, okay? I know some of it's going to go to public projects. For example, after the Vietnamese War in Washington, D.C., an architect constructed a beautiful black wall with the names of all the soldiers. Everybody in this room knows that. We're going to have a similar wall in Victoria, near the Parliament buildings, with the names of the 22,000 Japanese Canadians who were sent off to evacuation camps. My name's going to be there. My mom, Aunt Mary, Susie. What we need, Mayor and Council and staff, is a meeting of the minds. Not a meeting of petty, insular politics, but a meeting that conceptualizes what this money could be done. And right away I thought, affordable housing, of course, right? So please give that some thought. And one of us, Mayor, will be in touch with you and Council, and we'd like to partner with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience like to make any comments regarding the application? We've received many letters. Oh, Don, okay. You've also submitted a letter, correct, Don?
That's correct, yeah. We did on that here. And then I'll start seeing So, thanks. I think I need to identify myself. Don Ferris, 855 Barclay Place. Council and staff, have wisely got together and they put together a policy to deal with the problem that we all know about. This is perfectly appropriate, and I commend staff and council for doing this. To me, when something comes up, the way to approach it is to say, well, what does the policy say? And what are we trying to do? So on this policy, what it says, the temporary use permit policy, says that it's supposed to, among other things, all laudable objectives, but to balance public and private needs and maintain a reasonable level of compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. Well, I think as we've heard, and as you may have picked up, the particular application in this case is in a very different neighborhood than the other two properties in question. So this one is very definitely a single family unit, or a single family neighborhood, and so this is further evidence of incompatibility with the neighborhood. I've heard in dealing with the other applications the question, which is a good question, have we received any comments from neighbors? In the other cases, as I understand it, there was little or none. In this case, I think it's safe to say that there's quite a bit of comment. I am aware of no positive comment. I've read the application, and the application refers to communication. Spoke to all neighbors within 100 paces around. I'm one of those 100-pace neighbors. I've had no communication, and I'm not aware that that other people have been communicated with. So it's not compatible with the neighborhood. It's not compatible with environmental concerns. People have rightly pointed out the Passive Melfort Beach area has songbirds, sandpipers, waterfowl. It's one of the few remaining wildlife corridors in Ucluelet. It's got beautiful sand marshes in there. I've always thought this is the prettiest spot in Ucluelet. And so it threatens that. It's not compatible with parking. There's 3 parking spots out there that are supposed to be for Komodo Park. I don't think it's compatible with safety. My kids are grown and gone, but there are tons of little toddlers that are wheeling around there. And finally, I don't know, it's just a little offensive to me in that all the work that's been done to acknowledge, as Alan Komodo has said, the wrongs that were done to Japanese Canadians in this country. And here we have a park that's named after a wonderful family that's done so much for this area. And we're going to put a park, we're going to park 3 RVs with 2 or 3 porta potties right beside it. People won't be able to park and play. They'll have to go on the streets. Like it seems like it's very incompatible. And finally, earlier on, there was talk about breaking things, and if it ain't broke, don't change it or don't fix it or anything. Well, I would say that a use like this is really going to change the neighborhood, and I would say it's going to break the neighborhood. So I would strongly urge the council not to approve this. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the comments. Any other comments from anyone in the audience? Hearing, seeing none, no. Yeah, please do. Just get your microphone there, please.
I don't want to get into the reasons about why people are...
Just your name and address.
My name is John Greenglass, and my address is 917 Barclay Place. I to clarify, my address was used on the original application. There's a bit of a mix-up, and to clarify, our street is spelled B-A-R-K-L-E-Y. That is what is on the street sign. However, there's been some I think through BC assessment or whatever, there's been some people spelling it Barclay, like Barclay. I noticed it in some listings, some real estate listings before, and I just wanted to clarify. I'm assuming it's named after Barkley Sound, which is spelled with a K. So maybe the district can look into that. I just wanted to talk towards the zoning. The neighborhood is zoned towards single-family homes, and I want to say that the lot where this application is put forward is an undeveloped lot, and everyone else has had to go through the process of developing their lot within the district regulations, and I feel like just jamming a bunch of trailers in a mud pit isn't really, like, it's a mud pit, is going to cause problems. When the machines came in and out of there, you know, in the past, mud all over the road. There's quite a bit of infrastructure that, you know, or there's quite a bit of prep that would, to make anything done professionally, and I don't see that in the plan. I don't see that at all in the plan, and that's sort of the issue. At the end of the day, you know, look at the value of people's homes. It doesn't fit the neighborhood, and everyone's letters outlines details and whatever. But I just wanted to clarify the zoning. It's not the right place, you know. And also there was some miscommunication. Amy's application mentions that it's for fishing charter guides or owners from Hot Pursuit Charters. Sounds like most people are under the assumption it's for Howler's employees. I noticed the application was different than the notice I got, so I'd like to clarify that. And to be blunt, I don't personally, I'm going to be affected, and I don't owe these people from the fishing charter anything, so I don't know why I would be doing that. And, you know, maybe there's some district solutions, hopefully, can be put forward in the future, like a temporary worker RV lot for companies that come to town, like the fishing charter companies, for a few months. And, you know, maybe that could be done through the Chamber of Commerce, so it's managed, organized, not a party zone, you know. But I just think to keep it in people's families, to have this in family neighborhoods, that when the neighbors aren't interested, isn't a good idea. But I do wish these guys the best, and I hope you could, you know, maybe they could move those, extend that. I don't know how much room there is behind Howler's. Maybe they could have 6 there instead of 3 there, you know, whatever, if that's what they need for their own employees, right? But I know Amy's trying to help other people, but that's not your job. The district needs to figure something out that's more sustainable for the whole community, that can be managed. And yeah, I hope the district goes ahead and does something like that.
Hey, thanks for the comments. Any other comments from everyone in the audience? No? Okay. Paula, to you.
There are no hands raised on Zoom and no phone calls, but there have been, since the publishing of the late agenda, there have been more emails on this topic. If I can go ahead.
Yeah, please do.
The first one, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the last name, is from Joseph Saltysik and Ashley Williamson. It reads, as concerned parents and homeowners, we 100% disapprove. We live at 952 Peninsula Road. The next email contains a letter. This one is from Daniel Rodriguez, 897 Barclay Place, Ucluelet, BC, VOR 3AO, regarding temporary use permit TUP 22-04 912 Barclay Place, and then it is followed by the legal description. It reads, as a resident of 897 Barclay Place, I strongly oppose this request for multiple reasons, which I've listed below. 1. This is a residential neighborhood at the end of town, away from all the noise, consisting mainly of families with young children, young professionals, and retirees living in single-family dwellings. 2. 3 seasonal RVs will increase traffic at all hours in an already dangerous intersection, for which we requested a stop sign with an email to the district on September 27th, 2021, with no action taken to date. 3. 3 seasonal RVs for employees and local workers means 6 or more people coming and going at all hours, increasing noise and activity. 4. Access to the property will be next to a playground, increasing traffic by children. 5. It is my understanding that the owners of 912 Barclay have had multiple bylaw infractions in our neighborhood. 6. The owners of 912 Barclay own other properties better zoned to accommodate the development. 7. Owners previously owned a staff accommodation on Rupert Road. Why was it sold? What was the standing with the district on that property? There has been a staff housing shortage and housing shortage in general for years in Ucluelet. To sell staff accommodation for profit with no contingent plan seems short-sighted. Replacing it with trailers in our neighborhood, I don't believe it is an appropriate solution. 8. My wife and I have spoken with over 10 residential owners in our neighborhood, all of which have voiced their opinion against this temporary use permit. In the applicant's letter, it states that I have spoken almost all the neighbors 100 paces around us, and they have all shown support to our application. It is a completely false statement, as I have personally spoken with the majority of property owners within 100 paces, and they are adamantly against this proposal and have not been approached by the owners. In summary, we do not want this in our neighborhood. When my wife and I bought our home, we looked at a lot of neighborhoods and took traffic, noise, and safety into consideration. This increases all those variables and puts our children's safety at risk. Thank you, Daniel Rodriguez, CFP CIM 604-353-4080. And there's one more. This one reads, Dear Council members, I am writing in regards to the proposed application to allow 3 season RV camping spaces for local workers in the vacant property at 912 Barclay Place for a period of 3 years. Our concerns are twofold. One is the close proximity to the neighborhood playground at the foot of Komodo Drive, next door to 912 Barclay Place. We would assume that most times parents would be supervising their children during play, but some children that are a little older may be there on their own. Could a campground with possibly changing tenants put users of this playground at an increased safety risk? How often will the campground be monitored by the owners of howlers? And the second is noise concerns. Campground atmospheres encourage outdoor gatherings. In the past, there have been neighborhood house parties near that location that have emitted noise that can be heard as far away as the Coast Guard area, disturbing both residents and tourists in neighboring vacation rentals. It is understandable and commendable that business owners are trying to provide employee housing due expensive and limited housing options in Ucluelet. But I am not sure that a quiet residential neighborhood location, especially one that is next to children's playground, is a suitable option. Sincerely, Kellyanne and Rod Faulkner, 966 Peninsula Road, Ucluelet, BC, VOR 3A0. And that's the last of the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. I think we've done the public, we've done the emails, we've done the Zoom. I think it's pretty clear. I think we all take the stance. Temporary use permits, it needs to be well received in the neighborhood. Is there any comments from council?
I'm just going to pull out the safety issue here, because the clearing as on the site plan shows the vehicles would be pulling out right behind the parking for the playground, and that's a cul-de-sac. And I remember as a kid, like, you're up and down that cul-de-sac, you know, you're looking at your friends, you're not looking for vehicles. I consider that pretty serious potential issue.
Okay, someone like to make a motion regarding the direction we're going to go? There's a list on 143. Councillor McEwen.
I will move option C, that council reject the application for temporary use permit 22-04.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Moving on to 10.8. It's next report is provided by the Manager of Corporate Services regarding the 2022 UBCM Community Excellence Awards. Ms. Mason?
Good afternoon. I was recently contacted by the Manager of Corporate Services from the District of Tofino asking if we would be interested in submitting a joint application to the upcoming UBCM Community Excellence Awards for the Excellence in Sustainability category for the bylaw amendments that both passed banning single-use plastic utensils just this last spring. In order to solidify the submission, we do need a certified resolution or a motion from council to accompany it. So this is just a formal request for such.
Whoever moves it is going to have to speak. So go ahead. At UBCM. Go for it. Put you on the spot.
Hold on, I'm reevaluating right now. Reevaluating. No, what I would say is I was just going to be a little bit cheeky and thinking back on how we were a day after them because of where our meetings fell,
Upsetting
and
for
so
you.
we were second place and not first place. And but I think that that's lovely that they reached out, and 100% that I would support that recommendation.
You want to move it then?
Sure, but you can't hold me to that other part because it's not going to be on the record. That council authorized staff to submit a joint application in collaboration with the District of Tofino for consideration for UBCM's 2022 Community Excellence Awards. Excellence in Sustainability category for the bylaw amendments banning single-use plastic utensils in both municipalities is recently adopted in the spring of 2022.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, good one. I look forward to seeing you speak on that one. It'll be good. I'll be there in the audience, smiling at
Bring
you.
your bamboo
Yeah.
utensil kit.
Metal
Yeah.
straws. Okay. We got one correspondence letter. It was nice to get a little. Yeah, you don't get that. We should frame that one.
Everyone read that?
Huh? We'll put
I
that
think
one on
I think it should be read out loud.
Yeah, I think you should read it out loud. It's lovely. We don't
Marilyn, go for it. Go for it. There you go.
This is a letter from Rebecca Hurwitz. Dear Mayor and Council, just a short note to say thank you for the work you and the District of Ucluelet team are doing. I watched the May 31st meeting because of my interest in the changes to the zoning bylaw related to short-term vacation rentals in residential zones. I found I was curious about several agenda items and continued to watch from home. I was delighted about the support you allocated to the Tribal Parks Guardians and proud that Ucluelet has contributed to their work this summer. I was also appreciative of the proactive strategies and interventions that the staff brought forward related to tourism, as well as your thoughtful discussion and decisions. No doubt it will be a busy season. I'm grateful for the work your staff is doing and your willingness to consider new policies while centering our community needs. Way to go, Rebecca Hurwitz.
Yeah, thank you. There you go. Yeah. Thank
Kudos
you
to
to
staff.
Well, it's wonderful. Yeah. It's great when you vetoed all staff holidays and stuff. It's amazing what you can get out of them. I mean, it's just great. It's been awesome. Anyways, yeah, seriously though, thank you to all of you. Okay, information items. First, this report's provided by the Director of Engineering Services regarding the Clean Drinking Water Action Plan update. For information only, welcome back, Mr. McIntosh.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to provide a report and a brief update concerning that action plan that we created, the flushing of the water distribution system, and the water quality. So a little bit of background. Of course, we receive our water from two sources, Lawshoe Creek and also Mercantile Creek as well. Those two sources and the current technologies and the water quality that come from them don't always meet the current drinking guidelines defined by the Canadian Drinking Guideline and Act. Council will recall that late last year, district staff brought to council a report that we're calling that action plan, the Ucluelet Clean Drinking Water Action Plan, and a significant component of that was to flush the distribution system. And so what I can share is that the team anticipated to have lots of sediment in the system. However, there was quite a bit more than even we anticipated, shown here by some of those photos. So the so I'll share with you that the guideline that we're comparing ourselves against to is defined by it's created by the World Health Organization and also the Canadian Clean Water Drinking Act, and it's monitored by Vancouver Island Health. And so those guidelines are called the MAC, the maximum allowable concentrate, and also the aesthetic objective. And both of those are shown on your slide here and in your report. So the purpose of flushing, of course, is to reduce the sediment. In our system, that's iron and manganese coming from those sources, and knock that down. And then to do testing from the lab, and then adjust our maintenance. So this is both a good news story and a cautionary flag. It's good news because what I'm sharing with you today is that all the flushing, all that challenge that the community went through in the spring, it produced some of the lowest manganese levels that the community has seen in recent memory. There appears to be some seasonality to that mineral, but also that flushing helped. And so I recommend that we continue to flush, and we do it on an annual basis in smaller doses that are more palatable for the community, preferably off season. So that said, so that's the problem with our source. It's iron, manganese, turbidity, as we know. We have this action plan in place now. Part of it is about flushing. We're going to continue to do flushing and to monitor those levels and bring it down as needed annually. And then this is preparatory work as we move into our large capital treatment plan in the year ahead, in years ahead, and continue to work towards improving that water quality and eliminate this completely. So with that said, I'll stop for comments or questions.
Councillor McEwen?
Thank you, through the mayor to staff. Great report. I really enjoyed reading this one. I can't believe the last time the system was flushed was 2015. That's a long time ago. So you've got a more frequent schedule now, it looks like. And then on your graph, I thought it was really interesting, the manganese, a huge spike between February and October of 2021, like hugely more than any other time. Is that seasonality thing you're talking about, or do you know why it was that much more during those months?
Through the mayor, it appears to be seasonal. There's the data that I'm showing there is only 2 years. With some more time, of course, we could source some more data and more history, and have a more fulsome understanding of what was creating those spikes in manganese. Of course, looking forward to working with the data and Vancouver Island Health and our health officers to better understand that system. And that data will also be used to integrate into our water treatment processes. So working with associate engineering to fully understand the treatability of what's going on in our system and exactly what technology can bring that down to within the criteria and preferably even better, zero. So to answer your question, from the knowledge that I have today, it looks to be seasonal.
Comments?
No, I just know that is the flushing that made this lovely mark here, or what happened more recently when we were switching things out? Does that have anything to do with this, or that was a result of some part of the process that we have to go through when we're switching things out, and then expanded beyond the notification zone? So then houses outside of that mapped portion that were notified were not aware that it was going to happen. Does that have anything to do with this?
Through the mayor. So
I stumped you.
I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. And if so I'm going to answer, and if I'm not understanding, just ask again, please let me know. But so this is evidence that our system is absolutely full of sediment. It's absolutely full of manganese. That's that reddish brown material that we're seeing. And when we add chlorine into it to treat it, it's just clumping and building up in our system. It's in our reservoirs, it's in our pipes. It's happening so frequently that when we flush, it lasts for a period of time. We're going to be using lab results to analyze that, and then it builds up again. So what happens with changing out our fire hydrants as a result of flushing and discovering some failed hydrants, it's disturbing that sediment that's in the system. So that gives an indication of we flush for 3 weeks continuously, and then button the system back up. A short period later, change out some hydrants, and again, there's enough sediment in the system to cause that disruption. So, and then to answer the reason of why we do maintenance in a particular zone, and it's not always we're not drawing a line in the sand for that zone. It's a result of the old infrastructure. Record drawings aren't perfectly accurate, and the team experience, to be honest. So it's we're doing our best we can to isolate a specific zone, but then certain valves don't close, or there's backfeeding from other lines that we weren't aware of, and it's causing those zones to increase. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, I think the answer was yes. So the one thing I would say, and I think I said it before when the water thing came up, is that I think in future, if we're erring on the side of caution and maybe encompassing a grander space of people, could be effective if things don't go right the first time, only because it can cause a huge amount of grief and financial loss and damage to people's goods if their water is shut off without them knowing, and things can get wrecked. That's all.
Do you have any comments? How's the water at the main hotel in town? How's it been?
Can I just say that I took out those tent cards from the district the other day.
You know what a tent card was, James?
It had the district logo, was in all 133 rooms, and it said, embarrassing when people are paying that amount of money. I shouldn't be talking about work, but I'm just going to for a minute. But it said that about the district's water levels and it being brown, and we apologize. Come and spend $500 a night, but our water's really brown. So have a tub in the big white tub. Sorry, the water's brown. Please use the tent card. But on another note, I just want to. This has been a long time coming, and I just want to No, honestly, it's just like thank you to yourself. I know you were living your best life that last few months, and but I think not only myself but the whole community. Like it's about time that this is happening, and it's embarrassing that it hasn't been happening. But thank you for all of these reports, for everything. Like you have no idea. Even when I text you and you don't answer me, I'll let that go.
And James, James, that's my echo. That's my only comment. I'd say thank you. Your straight up approach is a breath of fresh air for all of us here, us in the community. I feel sometimes that we're the straw has been blinds pulled over our eyes. But at the end of the day, your ability to deal with it with the facts and solutions. The contractor Ridgeline, I know they've been instrumental in a lot of the work that you guys have been doing in your public works team. And I said it. I have filter at my home, and after all the cleaning, I've never seen the filter white. It's still white, the two filters, and so it's remarkable. So keep up the good work, and yes, the town completely appreciates what you're doing, and looking forward to your spending. Was it 11.5 million?
13 million.
Trying to keep them under budget.
13, yeah.
But yeah, so it's just it's great. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the first step. It's good.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you very much. It's with your support and the support of the community, and the hard work of the Public Works team as well that we'll get through this. So thank you.
And she's not texting you after 10 o'clock at night, correct?
No, sir. She has the wrong number.
Okay. Okay. Good answer. Good answer. Okay. And our second information item, this report is provided with Director of Parks and Recreation regarding the wayfinding standards, is for information only. Welcome back, Ms. Fortune.
We really do have different height staffed, don't we?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have the Trail Signage Framework Program, and I wanted to share some of the information with you and give you a bit of a timeline as to what's going on. Paula, can I have the next page, please? So just a bit of background. This Trailhead Signage Design Program, it was prepared to support the District of Ucluelet to establish a unique and consistent community-wide public signage program. So what we did was we worked with Urban Systems for 1 year, working with the staff in parks, rec, planning, and public works. So it was very much a team approach when we looked at this. We looked at locations, designs, guidelines, a lot of icons. Bruce and I looked at many icons over the time. And we're now in year 2, which we hope to start making them and installing as soon as possible. This is done through RMI funds, so it's completely funded through RMI. Paula, can I get the next slide, please? So the goals for the signage was to make them safe and, come on. Paula, next slide. Okay, so location. So in your package, you will see the 20 ones that we are currently trying to access to move forward with this project. Paula, can I have the next slide? So what I wanted to highlight was 1A and 1B. This is along Marine Drive, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at. And as I said, we have identified 20 locations. So the next slide, please. So for example, this is along Marine Drive that goes out to the Wild Pacific Trail. As you know, we have 2 sort of areas that one goes to the upper area and one goes to the lower area, which connects, they both connect with the Wild Pacific Trail. And so what this would do is this would have a double side on it. So it would send you straight down or straight to the right, or straight to the right. And this is just kind of a location detail to understand what we're looking at doing. So the whole intent is to create those pathways for the public to easily access where things are going and to give some distances. And that's kind of short and sweet, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what we're looking at, and we will be moving forward very quickly to start install. My hope is that we'll have all 20 locations in place by March 31st of 2023, if not earlier. Any questions?
Any questions?
So under figure 2 on page 185, the current wayfinding signs, are those going to be staying?
Yes.
Okay. And then these wayfaring signs are going to go on like wooden posts, like red cedar
that's
posts?
correct.
Have you priced out I'm just worried about what they'll look like if they're not kept up and stained properly.
Yes.
Have you priced out those metal ones that are easily to just clean off and go, or rust? Well, I'm just looking at options. No, they don't rust.
So what we through the marrow. So what we've done is we've looked at the install. We've looked at how we can keep them. One of the things we're looking at is possibly just allowing them to go natural. So again, trying to maintain that Yuki grit, but also trying to have it look classy as well. And so one of the big things that we did was we did a lot of looking at types of signage and how the quality of sign.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be a very important part of the process. Did I answer your question?
That was it. Thank you.
Councilor McEwen?
Thank you. The most, through the mayor, the most interesting part of this report for me was Sunset Point. I had no idea that you could actually walk past that gate and to that lookout.
Yes,
because
you
it's a
can.
gated community. I just always assumed it was gated for a reason. Yeah, so that surprised me the most out of this whole report.
I did it today actually with my walking group with the hospice. We have a walking group, and just before we come here, and yeah, there's not supposed to be any gated communities, and you can walk right out, and it's actually beautiful. Everybody's
beautiful.
Ooh, I took a picture. Yeah, of them.
There's a geocache up there. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, well, thank you for the update, and we look forward to seeing these signs.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Mayor's announcements. One happy, one sad. So we got just a reminder that Dustin Riley services this weekend, I think 11 or 12 o'clock this
11.
weekend here. and then followed by happy and crying, which would be grad class of 2022 will be at 2 o'clock at the high school. So just a reminder of the community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Moving on to council committee reports. Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. This past Saturday was the ribbon cutting and grand opening of the brand new Souk Library. And it was also the Vancouver Island Regional Library's first hybrid meeting ever, because they combined the grand opening of the Souk Library with the Board of Directors meeting. Apparently it had some hiccups, being the first hybrid meeting they've ever tried. I unfortunately couldn't attend because it conflicted with something else I had to be at. But just so you know, the Souk Library is brand new, now open.
Councillor Kemps.
My turn.
Your turn. Go for it.
June 8th, I attended the ACRD meeting for Councillor Cole, and it was my first one. I tell you, John Jack is a fantastic chair.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
I'm like, oh, I could learn a lot from him. He is great. It was a really long meeting, especially by Zoom, because you're just like, oh my goodness. But it was really good, and we there was unanimous support. We're writing a letter of support for the fire hall. And yeah, so it was really good. And last night I attended my very last 16 years of parent advisory council for the school. I am done. Well, sad, but it was sad. But yeah, it's good. Thank you.
I actually don't have anything to report.
I'm proud of you for actually letting Councillor Kemp go.
It's become out of necessity. I've asked her a few times, it just didn't work out. But this was thank you for that. I really appreciate it, because you got to stop accepting the invites, and then when you look back and there's all these anyways, thank you. So at our last meeting, I said I would defer anything that I had to the next time, because I was sitting in my car and we were just wrapping up and traffic in Vancouver and all that. So I actually didn't have anything when I actually looked back from that section, but on the first I did do the West Coast Committee meeting, and I did want to report out that there is a long-term land use plan in the process, and that it'd be about 2 years for the big picture for the airport. And that in the short term, anything that they're doing is with short term agreements, so that they get to a punting phase where they can, and then a recommendation through to the ACRD to back us up in our give to the Toloquiet, the tribal parks, that we would ask for them to contribute the same. So that went out as well. And then, whilst in Vancouver for some BC Ambulance work, I was able to attend the Climate Action Workshop with a bunch of lovely leaders. It was nice to see some familiar faces and meet some new people. And my biggest takeaway from that, they did a lot of work in the time I couldn't be there because I couldn't catch the whole session. And it was part of read that letter that Rebecca sent in, and that's not about climate action, but that it's recommended that we do maybe say out loud a little bit more the things we're doing when it comes to climate action, like the UBCM joint. Those kind of things are important to celebrate, and we know it, but if you miss the meeting, you might not know it, so that we should be sharing out more when we get those sort of wins. That was one of the top things that you can do, that we could take back from that meeting to the community to share and then to move forward on, just on a super easy, low-hanging fruit thing. Thank Lara for the ACRD, and tomorrow night is the elementary school PAC meeting. And then we have stuff we're doing tomorrow as well, and that will be all lovely. Yes.
Regarding the West Coast Committee meetings, if there's, so I'm getting different people saying different things. So if someone was interested in developing that some of that land out there, do they go to the West Coast Committee?
So
How do
the
they go?
West Coast Committee is sending recommendations to the ACRD about stuff that is the ACRD. I don't think, and our CAO could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see that you couldn't cut out the West Coast Committee if it wasn't in your trajectory and go
And just
straight
go
to the
straight to the
ACRD.
ACRD?
Yes, through the mayor. That would be correct. Pending the ACRD approval process and referral process, if there was an applicant that wanted to do something at the airport lands, the best move forward would be to go straight to the ACRD, to staff, and put in the request for whatever that proposal is, zoning, building permit, lease request, something like that. And then that would be similarly to a council meeting, brought forth to the appropriate committee or board for consideration.
And has there been talks at the ACRD level about upgrading the infrastructure, water, sewer, to that at all?
At the airport? Yeah, that's all part of the long-term land development. But that's whole, and there's lots of big stuff. It's gonna take a couple of years to pull that together. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. Oh, and I just wanted to, as I'm looking here, and it's my turn at 15.4, I noticed the dates of August 16th to October 31st that I am deputy mayor program there. I will say ahead of time that because I'm writing in the Cops for Cancer, I will be away from September 24th on the road. I will be in town when we arrive on October 1st and departing again for another week. Wheels going and not back until the 8th of October. So if somebody could have my back on that, that would be amazing.
And don't you have an event next week?
I do have an event next week. Thank you, jeez. So on the solstice, which my birthday is the 22nd, which I've always said is the second longest day of the year, because let's face it, it is. So longest day of the year, the solstice, which is also our Aboriginal, our Indigenous celebration, and that we get to share that on the I think it's very appropriate that it's the longest day of the year. We are having a community skate at the co-op, and it's going to be a fundraiser for Cops for Cancer. So Chief Rick Geddes and myself will be there, and what I don't know what we're going to be doing, but we're going to be there raising funds, and there is barbecue, and there is people skating, family skate, and excitement and lights and flashing lights on vehicles and stuff like that. So that would be great if as many people want to join us as possible, and bring your giving spirit for the cause.
What time is that at?
It's 5 to 9, I think.
Yep.
I only asked because we have a committee of the whole meeting at 4. Yeah.
Okay, it can't be helped.
So good, important. Bring your roller skates.
Inline skate also, if that's your thing. You could pop by after you're done.
We will.
community
No,
hall.
bring the kid by. She loves doing that
Yeah,
stuff.
fun.
You get $10 out of us. Hey, thank you for those reports. I don't think I have anything officially to report. And I'll move on to question period. Do I have something to report?
Nope, I'm good.
This is an opportunity for the public to ask questions and provide comments on items that have been addressed on today's agenda. Items not related to today's agenda will not be heard. Are there any questions from the audience regarding anything that just went on the agenda tonight?
Oh, she got it quick.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask James a question about your report. Could you flush out a little bit? It said a lot of the heavy sediment was pushed to Ucluelet First Nations, and that you worked with their water operators for several weeks for post-flushing to help improve the water quality. Can you talk a little bit about that process? And are you testing their water regularly as well? And is it better now that the flushing is complete? Thanks.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Ms. Malley. So throughout all the flushing, that 3-week period, we pushed sediment in every which direction essentially, and unfortunately, Ukulesat First Nations is downstream from our core central system, and so they received really quite a lot of sediment, and so they were testing high in manganese and high in other metals for quite some time, actually, really since we had the submarine line break. They were having some water treatment and water quality challenges that we've been working with them jointly. So, and then the water flushing really increased their challenges. So, what we did is throughout flushing, we were in regular communication with Ukulesat First Nations leadership, almost daily via text, phone call, and email, to provide updates to the community and provide as much information as we could. So, us being water purveyors to Ukulesat First Nations, our tests are really a reflection of how their system, the quality of their system is as well. That said, they're under a different regulation than Ukulesat is, so they have a different island health officer than Ukulesat does, and they do their own independent testing as well. So we do testing for our system, and they do system for their testing. Our system is a reflection of how their system will be. When we push more sediment into their system, it's just a really indication of them being downstream. So what we did is we sent operators over to Ukulesat First Nations to work with water operators in the weeks after, 1 to 2 weeks after, and did flushing of the line just across the inlet before Ukulesat First Nations and Hutatsu really begins. So that said, it took about 3 weeks or so just to receive positive reports that they were receiving test results from their lab and their health officials that they were all clear. Yeah. So I hope that answers.
Any other questions from any audience members? Okay, hearing seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk, are there any questions by Zoom or telephone?
They're not.
And have we received any questions by emails to communityinput@ukulesat.ca?
There are no new emails.
Okay, so closed session. So I move that the meeting be closed to the public in order to address agenda items under following section of the Community Charter, Section 90A, personal information about identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality, or another position appointed by the municipality, and Section 90E, the acquisition, disposition, and I hate when they do all this, expropriation of land and or improvements, if the council considers that disclosure could be reasonably expected to harm the interests of the municipality. Something like that.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Can I make a motion to go out, use it?
We are going to, she has to do it. You don't need to do that.
What do you call it?
You're good.